you buy something for $1 million and it goes up 5%, that's significantly more net worth over time and equity than something for $400,000 that goes up 5%.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cash Flow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. I'm here today with Brian Coons. Brian, good to see you.
What's up, man?
So, Brian, you work over at ADU Geeks, correct?
I do. Been there almost 2.5 years now.
And tell me a little bit about how you even got started in this business.
Yeah, so I started in the Marine Corps. I was over in North Carolina for a few years and then came over to San Diego in 2019. And at that time, I just had the right person say the right thing to kind of get me interested in real estate.
Right.
That kind of sparked something. And then when COVID happened, I was able to get basically paid a little bit more. I got the housing allowance. Then COVID kind of COVID took away some of the work effort that I was doing as a drill instructor, and I was able to kind of focus on it and got into a 4-unit when interest rates dropped and prices didn't reflect that yet. And it was this like perfect storm of so many things that happened, and I was able to get into a 4-unit.
So being a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, COVID hits, you take advantage of not just your VA, but the housing allowance and the interest rate drop, and boom, you get a multi-unit. Not a single family, not a condo, you get right into a multi-unit. How'd you find it? Like, how did this deal come about?
Yeah, so it didn't start as a 4-unit. I just, I was analyzing some deals. I had, I reached out to somebody on Bigger Pockets, and he kind of gave me some how to run numbers, and just duplexes weren't doing it for me. I saw like a triplex or two that kind of got the numbers close enough, but then when I went up to 4 units, I realized that it's almost like you're buying in bulk, and the prices get cheaper per unit.
Right.
And so for me, I understood that in my mind, when you buy something that's more, you buy something for $1 million and it goes up 5%, that's significantly more net worth over time and equity than something for $400,000 that goes up 5%. So
this is good background. You said you reached out to someone on Bigger Pockets. Talk to me about that mentorship. Like, where did it come from for you to be able to, get the cojones to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go right into it.
Yeah. So it's like I looked at it as Yelp for real estate investors, and I was like, let's look for the dude with
Bigger Pockets. You're now considered Yelp of real estate.
Yep. So I literally looked for the dude with the best reviews, and I just reached out to him. Was like, hey, like I'm trying to get into this space. Can you, are you willing to kind of help me a little bit? And he sent me like 4 master classes from his broker that just kind of taught me some very like high level zoning of, property analysis and things like that in San Diego. And literally like, you don't know what you don't know, but I was like almost unconsciously incompetent. And I just literally like, I reached out to him in middle of May, and I was in escrow in the 4-unit on June 5th. So it was like such a short turnaround time where I was like, hey, numbers work, put in an offer. Numbers work, put in an offer. I put in like 10 offers and, found out that debt to income ratio was a thing. I had no idea when I bought the property. It's just like interest rates were so low that I was just the lender's like, yep, you're good. Didn't even think about it.
Yeah, 3% rates. Now, you fast forward, you're an acquisition specialist with ADU Geeks, right? Now, how did you choose that niche? Was it just off that fourplex, or what kept the wheels turning to where you do what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I run the development and acquisition side for ADU Geeks, and kind of what sparked that was I didn't understand what debt to income ratio was. I didn't really know what I didn't know. So I bought this first property and just maxed out all of my debt to income or, all of my income and whatnot. So I had some money saved up because I didn't actually put any money down to buy it because of the VA loan.
Go VA.
It's great. But then it presented a second problem where I was like, okay, shit, how do I get into this next property?
Right.
And so,
you were hungry and you had a property and you're hungry, like I need to do more. And then all of a sudden the income ratio, they're like, hey, you don't make enough to on paper to qualify for it.
Exactly. So I had this money saved up, and I was just like, what makes sense? And that was the same time that I met the founder of ADU Geeks actually, and he was talking at an event and kind of like said something very high level, but it was like, hey, you build at 300 a square foot, you sell at 700, and I was like, that makes to me.
That makes a lot of sense, right?
And it just kind of caught my attention, and then going to meetups and mastermind groups and stuff, I met like 2 other guys that all 3 of us were, hey, we got a little bit of capital, and my dad was a contractor, so he's been building stuff so he can kind of make sure we don't crash and burn. And once again, we were unconsciously incompetent enough to go buy something about a month and a half after we met each other. And Yeah, I bought some land. And that was the same time that ADU regulations came out in city of San Diego, where you were allowed unlimited ADUs.
Right.
And it just, but yeah, my brain, like I felt like this Jesus moment where like everything around me was like, this makes so much sense.
Right.
And yeah, I just fell in love with it and, started working at ADU Geeks when I got out of the Marine Corps, and it's, just grown from there.
I love that transition. Now, based on the experience you have and also working at ADU Geeks, talk to me a little bit about your real estate investment philosophy. Like, well, you said a good one here, like, hey, buy at 300, sell at 700, is that the mantra or how do you look at things?
So for me, I think the reason that I'm so heavily invested in the ADU and the small urban infill development space here is because I believe that every area has a niche that works for that specific market.
Right.
Some places are better for flipping. Some places are better for buy and hold, cash flow. San Diego, specifically city of San Diego, is small urban infill development. There are these 5,000 to 7,000 square foot lots.
Talk about it. Tell me why. God. I mean, I want to hear, if every place has a niche, why San Diego on the urban infill? So
city of San Diego is the most forward ADU city in all of America. They have said, hey, if you have a lot that
San Diego.
It's crazy. Like they're like, if you have a lot that you're allowed to build 5,000 square feet of housing. Most of the time up to this point, you've only been allowed to have, for example, 3 units on it, but you could build big units and create, 5,000 square feet. Now they've said you're not limited by how many units originally were allowed on it. You're now limited by the FAR. So if you're in, and
what is FAR, just for those who don't know?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the floor area ratio is how much actual habitable square footage and that you're allowed to build on a property.
Gotcha.
So if a property is 10,000 square feet, or a lot is 10,000 square feet, it's a 0.5 FAR, that's 5,000 square feet of habitable space. So for that, normally it's been, hey, you can have 1 unit per 1,000 square feet, so you get 5 units. Now, there's no rule on that. It's just you're limited by the 5,000. So you could do, 10 500 square foot units or 20 250 square foot units. There's no rule.
Wow.
And
is there a minimum habitable square footage, or it just has to have a certain number of things?
So for ADUs, you're limited between 150 and 1,200 square feet.
Got it.
Which most of the time right now, you're not going to be building 150 square foot units. You need bigger, and then you're also like not building gigantic units because most 99% of the time, the cash flow and the returns are not there.
Doesn't make sense
on those investments.
If you're going to have a 1-bedroom, you're going to have a studio, you might as well be this size and have your kitchen, your basic, your bathroom, and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And let me ask you another question on here. Why is it that the city of San Diego is so progressive on this? Like, what's making them tick?
Yeah, city of San Diego just has been very forward in their thinking. California came down with ADU regulations and said, hey, everyone's allowed 1 or 2 ADUs for the most part.
Right.
City of San Diego said, we really need housing. Where California needs housing, but city of San Diego really needs housing.
Yeah.
And now it's created this perfect storm where the cost to build versus the rents that you can actually get in San Diego market, plus the allowable density you're allowed to get now, has just created this perfect storm where, like, I have a conversation every other day of someone who's in Orange County or LA or San Francisco who's now investing in San Diego.
I love it.
Because it's unreal.
I love it.
So
we talked a little bit about the philosophy and how you got into it. Let's talk some actual deals here. I'm sure you've got some phenomenal deals, but do you have any terrible ones?
I have a couple learning lessons for sure along the way.
Let's talk learning lesson first, and then we'll cover a good deal after. But I want to let people know, look, you've been very successful in the space, but it doesn't come without trials and tribulations. So talk to me about, let's say, it doesn't have to be a nightmare, but whatever works.
Yeah, so it was coming off a high of selling a property and 1031ing it into a couple of different properties. We did really well on the first, over-leveraged on 3 different properties, and we bought one that, it was boarded up, no windows, no flooring really.
Where was this?
This is city of San Diego. This was in Logan Heights.
Got it.
And
how'd you find this?
This was on market. This
really?
was sitting on market. It was just an absolute nightmare of a property, and everyone was kind of looking at it because it was a duplex with a garage underneath.
Okay.
And everyone was looking at it as a duplex, and it just kind of didn't pencil for the numbers.
Right.
But for me, I was saying, hey, we can turn this into 6 units within the existing space.
Nice.
And so we just, knowing all the ADU regulations and things, we were able to get there. And we told the lender, hey, this has a code violation on it. We're going to go through this and retroactively get permits for it. they told us they were good. And, I don't have all the experience in the world, so I don't, wasn't thinking too hard. They told me I was good, so I thought I was good.
They gave me the thumbs up. You told them what needed to be done, what the issues were. And so you put your Infill developer hat on. You're like, we can make this happen. Boom, you go. Now, real quick, what's building with retroactive permits?
So building with retroactive permits is essentially called an as-built permit. So a lot of people, have built ADUs that aren't actually permitted, and now they can go back and get it permitted the way that it's already built in most cases. So that's what we were going to do. We were going to do the work and then go through the permitting afterward to be able to rent it out, earlier. Obviously, you're taking on some liability, but we felt comfortable with that.
Okay.
So we started going through the rehab of this. We got about $100,000 in, went for the first draw, and the lender said, hey, where's the permits at? And I was like, you told me that we were good. And they were like, oh, no, we don't give you the money until you have permits.
Okay.
And so that money that we were expecting to get back from the draw was already placed into the second deal that we had. And so it was this cascading effect of playing catch up, and we had a $25,000 a month burn rate on the 3 properties, and we just did not have enough reserves because we didn't think about it.
Right.
And so we got into this one property, specifically the 6 unit, rehabbed it, but we kind of pushed through really quickly, and we just didn't feel comfortable renting it out yet because of all the nightmares we've been having.
Right.
So it started sitting vacant, and we started having some homeless people.
Squatter issues.
Yeah, some homeless people that were seeing the space, and me being a drill instructor in my past, I kind of felt brave enough to go shoo them away. And so I spent probably a couple of months, like every week or two, just going over myself and getting them out of there.
And this is the way it works. Like, if you have a vacant property, and again, this is for any landlord or for any property owner, there are certain areas, and San Diego has them. Logan Heights is definitely one of those areas where once the surrounding, let's say, populace knows your property is vacant, it's a target. And it might as well be, free living, because they're going to keep coming back because they know you're not going to stand guard out there 24/7.
Yeah. And something else that's really interesting, you probably know this too, but when you don't have a property that's occupied, if somebody breaks in, it's just trespassing. It's not actually breaking and entering. So it's not like an emergency for 911.
They're not coming out.
So yeah, you can call the non-emergency line and wait for an hour and a half. And I've done this in multiple properties.
Good point,
so that's something huge too, is like you have to get someone actually living there for it to be able to, hey, I have an emergency over here.
If someone broke in, burglar breaking in. Right. So you had to play basically security guard. And how did that go? I mean, was it normally just like, hey, you can't be here, go? Or did you have people, scary situations?
Yeah. So I, it was going fine for a little while. Went over, I kind of put on the face of the drill instructor and got him out. And, but there was one time, it was a Saturday night, and I was literally going to grab pizza with my girlfriend, and we were going to go home, watch a movie. Got a call from the neighbor and said, hey, someone's living in there. Someone has their mattress, everything, they're moved in.
Got it.
And I was just not having it. So I went over there, parked in the alleyway, and talked to the neighbors. They knew me at that point. I said, hey, I'm going to yell. Like, I'm going to put on the drill instructor face. I'm going to go yell at this person, get him out. Went in there, just not appropriate in hindsight, but I went in there. She was hiding in the bathroom. I push-kicked the door open, screaming at her. Yeah, screaming at her, putting on the show. I grabbed a stick and was just hitting it against things to try and put on the show. She's yelling at me. I'm yelling at her down the alleyway. And she goes down, and I say, cool. I go lock up everything, and I walk back to the alleyway to go get in the car. And there's these 3 dudes that, face tats, chains.
Damn.
They're just walking up to me, and they do not look like they're trying to talk to me about Jesus. So I was scared. I was like, I'm going to die. This is the moment that I'm going to die. And he comes up to me, and he tells me, hey, we need her stuff. He's pissed off at me. He has no idea, no context, aside from, some white man yelling at an old elderly black lady. And I through the conversation of grabbing her stuff, he's like, oh, this is your crib. She was breaking. And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay, I'm a neighbor. I just he didn't have context. Right. And just the biggest sigh of relief of my life. I was like, my girlfriend's going to watch me die. It was crazy. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna just call the police, let them handle it. I'm kind of done with that.
Did it continue to go on thereafter, or were you lucky enough to have it where that it was closer to the end, or it died down after you did make that scene?
Yeah, so that was It died down a little bit. We still, when we went to sell the property, because we fire saled the property.
Right.
We didn't lose money, which was great, but we sold it for less than we thought we were going to make.
Sure.
The appraiser literally took a selfie with the lady that was there several times, and she's like in the back like screaming at him. Like it just is so funny. But yeah, we ended up like, after that, it somewhat died down. We got everything kind of like reboarded up a little bit and locked things.
Walk me through a summary total time. Like, how much did you get it for? How much did you put in, and how much did you have to sell it for?
Yeah, so we bought it $565. We put in about $200,000 to it. Then we bought it in September of 2022.
Got it.
And we sold it in July of 23. And we sold at $875.
Mm-hmm.
So we got all our capital back.
Right.
We made it was probably like $10,000 after everything. But we got a lot of learning lessons. So
Biggest takeaway from that.
don't overleverage and know what you're make sure the lender knows what project you're doing.
Got it. Now, I mean, and thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people are afraid to talk about some of their losses, and I think it's such a learning lesson when other people see like, it doesn't always go perfect.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I said, it's a learning lesson, and I was much braver than I probably needed to be. So everyone thinking that those are the stories that everyone has in real estate. There was several ways that I could have handled that way better.
Right.
That would not have put me or my girlfriend or anyone that I knew in risk.
Well, if we're talking about for that specific scenario, and I'm with you, and I talk to people about that all the time, especially you see squatters on the news. Like, look, number one, like, you don't have to agree with the law, you don't have to agree with the way things are, but the last thing you want to do is put yourself or your loved ones in jeopardy. You put your hands on somebody, you're going to go to jail, and for what?
Yep.
For what?
Exactly.
Let's go have a beer and bitch about it, about the law,
Right.
and let the professionals handle it. But I'm with you 100%. But I know you've had some wins, so let's talk about a deal that's had some success and how you went about it.
Yeah. So we can do the deal that I actually 1031'd from into that other nightmare deal.
Okay.
So this land was, like I said, it was some land that we bought in. We got into escrow in December of 2020. December of 2020.
Okay.
And
where's this one at?
This was in Logan Heights as well. Hilariously, just kind of a different area of Logan Heights. We bought it. We got into escrow expecting to put 4 units on it.
Okay.
The ADU regulations came out literally that month.
Right.
And we spent probably 2 months like digging into these laws and figuring out how we could finagle and max out the square footage and things. And we were able to put 8 units on it.
Really?
And
so you bought a piece of land. What was on it originally?
So it was just land. It was a single family home splitting 2 lots.
Got it.
And then they demoed the house. And then they ended up just wanting. I think they had like a build in La Jolla that these developers were doing, so they ended up just selling it. So we bought it with it already scraped, had utilities, all these things, and it was like ready to go.
Ready to go.
Yep.
And what everybody thought was 4 units, all of a sudden now you
all
can
of a sudden
8.
it was 8.
Cool.
And so so we through like understanding the like laws and like I said, we spent like a month and a half like digging, like really trying to play around with how we can maximize the space and stuff. We created like enough value along with these ADU laws at the same time, and it was able to and the market at the same time in 2020. And so just everything like kind of aligned, but there was also like a level of just there was a lot of like work put into like the due diligence side. That we ended up 1031ing that, and we didn't even build it because there was so much of a spread.
All the work that you needed to do to get it laid out so somebody could go put 8 units.
Yeah.
How do you get that information? Like, is it you on the internet? Is it you downtown in the in the county office? Is it you call up somebody? Like, how do you get this information?
All of those, depending on the project. So like at ADU Geeks now, I've done probably feasibility on 1,000 different properties.
Got it.
And like deep due diligence on them. And every one is a little bit different. And I've spent 5 hours. I spent 3 hours on my couch last night reading about a bill that didn't even get passed and figuring out how the HCD, the Housing Commission, and everything. Yeah, so it's basically just really boring reading, but then also like trying to understand and put the pieces together with like real properties and examples of different properties and playing with each one. And over time, you start to see like the trends, and you start to like put all the learning lessons together. But yeah, I mean, it's just development is just hard. It's just there's so much that goes into it, and you can learn it. It's just boring, and that's why a lot of people don't do it.
Is it a mixture of art and science when you talk about development? And like, yeah, you have these laws, but is it a lot of it the way that it's interpreted both down at the housing, at the city level and then at the inspector level, or?
Yeah, so interpretation is a huge thing. That's basically what I was digging through last night is
Right.
like all the nuances of how something could be interpreted.
Right.
And so I've like actually like in a couple scenarios like set precedent with the HCD.
Got it.
For specifically, they're basically the ones who make like the ADU regulations.
Right.
And because, San Marcos was one who just said like, hey, no, you're not allowed to do that. And I said, no, this is like literally what it says. This is how I'm interpreting it. Send it to the HCD, and they came back and said, yep, that's how we interpret it. And I just sent it over to San Marcos.
And San Marcos said you could do a deal.
Yep.
It's amazing, and I love the way that your approach going about it. Any other like good deals that you think that are worth sharing, or any other specifics that you'd?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I have like 3 builds that are going on
Got
that are about to start. So I have a 3-unit, an 8-unit, and an 11-unit build.
I love it. I love it.
In Allied Gardens and Linda Vista areas.
Got it. Allied Gardens. I love it. Okay, so talk to me about Allied Gardens. How'd you find this? And again, I know everything you've told me is like you found it on market. Is that the same here?
So every single deal that I have ever bought has been on market.
And why is that with all these people talking about like, oh, you got an off-market deal?
So for me, it is something that people. There's these times that something comes on the market that the person who's selling it doesn't actually understand what it is.
Right.
And if you can capitalize on that opportunity, you are able to take advantage of it.
Right. So a deal has value, whether it's off market, on market. If there's value, you have the ability to see it and translate that into a purchase and go ahead and put it into place.
Right. So if you understand your underwriting and you understand what can be done on the property,
Right.
then you can deduce a value. And if that value makes sense and you feel comfortable with it, send it. So like this property was listed at 700 and we offered 770. My partner looked at me like I was crazy.
Right.
And I was like 770. And to this day, a year and a few months later, we still haven't seen a deal that was that good on market.
Oh my gosh! And what'd you end up doing with this? What'd you end up doing? Did you turn it into multi-unit or what?
So this one is a single-family home. We completely gutted, rehabbed it. My partner is, does the construction side of it.
Okay.
But then we went through permitting, and we're currently building out a garage conversion and 2 ADUs.
Nice.
So it's going to be, we bought it at 770. All in is going to be around 1.4 or so.
Nice.
And then it'll probably be worth between 1.9 and 2.1.
Help me so that everybody else can understand too. When you're doing these deals, is it your cash? Is it investor cash? Is it hard money? Like how are we doing the financing on this?
Yeah, so this one, so my buddy actually my partner used his owner-occupied loan. So we
Okay.
came down with less money.
Right.
We put in the money for the rehab and the permitting on our own.
Got it.
And then we raised private money from a fund as a second position loan.
Nice.
So we're going to go through the build with that private money, and then
Right.
we're going to refinance afterward.
Nice. So owner-occ to get it. All right, that's where the partnership comes into play. Then, bank of your pocket to finance the rehab and get the permit going. And then when you're going to do the full units, hey, that's what you use basically private equity money to go ahead and get it going. And when it's all done, you're all finished, you're going to refinance it or sell, but you have the exit strategy one way or the other.
Ideally we're going to hold on to it, but obviously there's always a chance that, hey, if it makes sense and whatnot to sell, we'll sell. But yeah, a lot of these deals, like if you're building enough ADUs, you're going to create enough margin for lenders to feel comfortable. The people who have issues financing ADUs are the ones that want to build one.
I love your takeaway on it and the approach that you've had on this. Last bit of advice, you're talking to, Junior Brian or somebody in your position 4 years ago. What are you telling them? What's the 1 or 2 things you're telling them, hey, you got to do this to moving forward?
Yeah, so I mean, like you need to learn. You have to do the front side of understanding the general of real estate, of investing and networking around you. And then that allows you to ask appropriate questions and decide what you want to get into.
Got it.
And I've literally everything that I have done, everything I bought, my job, my girlfriend even, have all been from real estate meetups and networking events and just putting
I
myself
like how you
out there.
threw in my girlfriend as well as from
Literally
real estate
all of them.
meetup.
It's crazy.
Fair enough. There you go. Go to real estate meetups.
Go
That's
to
what
real
it is.
estate meetup, and just put yourself out there and learn and provide value to people. And I think that it pays in full.
Bro, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sitting down. It's been a huge block of information that I know the listener is going to be able to take away from it. It isn't just like, oh, you and I, we're Marines and running around. Like, we actually, like, this is how you started. This is how you're finding deals. This is how you were doing the financing. Here's some wins. Here's some losses. And real estate meetups, because you might get a girlfriend too.
You never know. Dude, thanks for having me on, man. It's been awesome.
I love it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into Cash Flow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss, here with Brian Coons. Everybody, take care. We'll see you next time.